Hi, I'm Tally. I'm a personal development nerd and I write about topics like self-esteem, relationships, career, and personal growth. If you are somebody who has quit therapy in the past or you're considering quitting therapy because it hasn't really been feeling like it's worked up until now, stick around. I'm going to share 5 reasons why therapy might not have worked for you and what you can do to change your approach and get a lot more benefit from it. Have you been disappointed by therapy in the past? Maybe you've tried therapy and it just hasn't really felt like it was for you, like you weren't really getting what you thought you would out of it. That can be really frustrating. I can speak from experience because I started going to therapy for 12 years ago. And now, mind you, I have not been in therapy all 12 years, but I've gone to therapy on and off throughout the course of that time. I've tried 5 different therapists throughout that time. And most of that time, I didn't really feel like therapy was much to write home about. It was only in the last 2 years that I found a therapist that I really liked and started figuring out how to actually approach therapy in a way that ended up getting me a lot of benefits and helped me grow, not just through the problems that I was talking through, but as outside of my therapy sessions. The first time I went to therapy, it was because my parents were getting a divorce. The second time, I had broken up with left a long-term relationship and needed some help with that. That second therapist ended up dropping out of my network, so I went to find a third therapist to go to because I still had some stuff to work through. And, she was really nice. Like, she seemed like your typical therapist, but there was something just kind of off. Like, I felt like she was, like I had to be a good patient. Like I had to impress her with like, oh, look at all this work that I'm doing. So something about it just felt a little off, and I decided, okay, let me find another therapist after that one. The fourth therapist I tried was, oh my God, the most awkward human being I've ever met in my life. Like, not just as a therapist, but just as a person. She was clearly new to the industry, which is fine, but it was the most awkward, like, consultation I've ever sat in. I was counting down the minutes until I could go and leave the room and never come back to that therapist again, because she was just awkward, and she had this awful eyeliner on. Anyway, that's not the point of the story. Point of the story is it took me 4 different therapists and like a lot of different trial and error to finally find the therapist that worked for me. My 5th therapist, who I found kind of at the beginning of, right before the pandemic. And she turned out to be somebody I like naturally clicked with. I really liked, I felt like I could trust. I was finally getting the benefits from therapy. I was finally able to like really do some work and learn how to better deal with my problems outside of therapy, which was pretty huge. So it was of those 12 years of on and off trying therapy and going to different professionals, it was only in the last 2 that I actually found a therapist that I liked and that felt like was really like, wow, I get this. I really understand, like, therapy is awesome. It took a while to get there, and I think that there are some mistakes that people make, myself included, and that keep them from actually making the most out of therapy and from finding real benefits. And those can be it can be really discouraging if you go to a therapist and you feel like you're not getting what you need out of it. So I'm sharing these 5 reasons why therapy might not have worked, because I want to encourage you, first of all, if you're thinking about quitting therapy, or if you're thinking about going back to therapy, I want to encourage you to like give therapy another try, but do it in a way that is a little bit more strategic, a little bit more intentional, so that you can get real benefits from it. And so you don't have to wait, 10 years like me to start feeling like, whoa, okay, I get how this is supposed to help. I want you to start feeling those positive benefits of therapy sooner. So here are 5 reasons why therapy may not have worked for you in the past. Number 1, your therapist wasn't the right fit for you. I went through 4 different therapists, and I didn't really feel like I clicked with most of them that much. Definitely not the one with the weird eyeliner. It was only the 5th therapist that I talked to that I actually felt like I had some natural chemistry with. And now, don't get me wrong, your therapist is not your best friend. They should not be your best friend. You should not be that close to your therapist. But they should be someone that you naturally feel connected to. They should be someone that you feel like you'd, have a conversation with naturally, that it's not super forced or super uncomfortable. I don't have to tell you this, but you're not going to get along with everybody you meet. That includes therapists. Therapists are trained professionals. They go through, to some extent, they go through this similar training and certifications, but past that, they're people at the end of the day. And you're not always going to get along with all different types of people. You know, there might be some people that you gravitate more towards because they have a similar vibe to you, or they might be similar age to you, or just something about them, the way that they hold themselves, or the way they smile, or they don't smile, or if they're really boisterous, or if they're more reserved. Different strokes for different folks. All therapists are the same. Even if they're professionals, you're still going to get a little bit of their personality and how they hold themselves. And the reason it's important to find a therapist that is a good fit is if you're not going to be able to do the deeper work that you need from therapy, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to open up to somebody that you don't really like or you don't trust that much. We trust the people that we like. So you need to like your therapist. So instead of just going for the first therapist that you land on and sticking with them regardless of whether or not it feels like it's uncomfortable or not, shop around. Think of therapy like as dating. You wouldn't necessarily marry the first person that you go on a date with just because they're available. See if you can find somebody that you naturally get along with, that feels comfortable to be, to speak with them. Reason number 2 why therapy may not have worked for you in the past. You didn't give your therapist feedback. For my previous therapist, I know I've definitely kind of nodded along to something that they were saying, but maybe didn't fully agree or fully buy into it. Or maybe there was something I really wanted to talk about, but they decided to talk about a different topic, and it maybe didn't feel as relevant for me, but I went along with it because they were the professional. And I didn't really feel like I was getting much out of therapy. It felt like I kind of relinquished power over the conversation to them. And frankly, it was because I didn't want to embarrass them. I didn't want to disrespect them. I thought, okay, they're the professional. They get to say what happens. But that's not the case. You should be giving your therapist feedback about what's working and what's not, and what you want to talk about if they're, veering off course into something that, you don't find is relevant. Or if they suggest something, or if they have an insight and you don't agree, or it kind of just, rubs you the wrong way, give that feedback. You want to be really open with your therapist, not just about what you're going through, but also whether or not the approach is working. Don't worry, you're not going to hurt their feelings. If they're a professional, then they expect to have to adjust their approach a little bit, but they can't read your mind. So if you're just nodding along and smiling to something because you're worried about it's going to be awkward if you disagree, stop it. You're just people pleasing your therapist. You're not going to be able to get the full benefits of therapy if you're just kind of not proactively giving feedback about what's working and what's not. So instead, give your therapist feedback. They're a trained professional. They're not a mind reader, but they're a trained professional. And a good therapist should be able to adjust their approach. Reason number 3 why therapy may not have worked for you in the past. You didn't trust your therapist. I alluded to this in the last 2 reasons, but it's so important to trust your therapist. If you're worried that your therapist is judging you, or you're worried that, they're only in it for the money, they're just using you for their job, they don't actually care about your well-being, or if you think that they're trying to lead you towards a certain conclusion and they just have an answer in their mind that they're not telling you, they're trying to manipulate you into getting. If you don't trust your therapist, it's going to be really hard to open up and be honest. If you thought your therapist was judging you, you would probably put up some walls and filter your thoughts and filter what you're saying, or change what you're saying a little bit just to not feel like you're being judged. Now look, I'm not saying you should trust anybody when it comes to things like this, when it comes to what you're going through and sharing really personal things. You have an instinct to protect yourself from people you don't trust, and that instinct is fair. But once you find a therapist that you like, that you get along with naturally, and that is you can share feedback with, you kind of have to get out of your own way and get out of your head and stop making up reasons to not open up if this person has given you nothing but reasons to open up. You gotta trust that your therapist has your best interests in mind, that they care about your well-being, and that they're not judging you. And honestly, if you feel like they're judging you, give them that feedback. Reason number 4 why therapy may not have worked for you in the past: you weren't comfortable being uncomfortable. We have this weird narrative, I feel like, in the media that makes it seem like therapists are mind readers or they're mentalists or something. It's almost like like anytime you watch a show or a movie, it's super dramatic. Like somebody walks into the office and the therapist just takes one look at them and automatically like knows exactly what's wrong with them and is able to list off like all their flaws and all their childhood traumas and all these things. Therapy doesn't work that way. Your therapist isn't a mind reader. They're trained professionals, but they're not here to troubleshoot you and fix your problems for you. And it's totally fair if you thought that you're just going to show up to the therapist's office and they're going to tell you like, here's exactly what you need to do. That's fair because nobody really tells us how to actually approach therapy. And so everybody always touts like, oh, you better go to therapy if you're having mental health issues. And you kind of start thinking like, oh, it's like I just show up and the doctor works on me and I'm good. I walk out feeling good as new. But the truth is, unlike going to a doctor or dentist where you just lay back and they do all the diagnosing for you, you actually, as the patient, have to do most of the work in a therapy session. Your therapist is there to guide and facilitate your introspection. They're not there to figure out your problem and fix it for you. So you have to do the hard parts of challenging your preconceived notions, pushing yourself to open up, really pushing yourself to be honest and like look inwardly and think like be open to new ideas and perspectives. And it's hard work. But you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable because your ability to make the most out of your therapy sessions is totally dependent on your willingness to do this kind of work and to go, you know what? I'm actually the owner of my well-being. There's this professional who can help guide me as I explore, why I'm behaving certain ways or why I think certain ways and help guide me in finding a solution. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who's responsible for it. So I need to push myself to get introspective and work on the important stuff. So be proud of yourself. Every time you give your therapist feedback against your instinct, every time you go deep into something that doesn't feel comfortable, every time you allow yourself to experience some negative emotions or be radically honest with yourself, go, yeah, you know what, I'm proud of myself. I'm like, this isn't comfortable. I'm putting myself in this situation and it's not comfortable, but I know that it's going to be better for me. And so you know what? I'm freaking proud of myself. Tell yourself that. And reason number 5 why therapy may not have worked for you in the past is you expected too much too soon. If you went to 1 or 2 sessions or just a handful of sessions and left disappointed, feeling like you're leaving empty-handed, you gotta adjust your expectations. Therapy is something that takes, it's kind of like going to the physical therapist. You're not just gonna show up with a torn ACL or an injured knee on one day and then expect to be able to walk out, good as new the following day. When you go to a physical therapist, the first day you're going to be kind of getting to know each other, diagnosing, like you're going to be telling the history, they're going to be asking some questions, it's a little bit almost administrative. It's usually called a consultation. You're not going to really get very far. You're probably maybe going to just start grazing the tip of the iceberg. And then you have to come back. If you have an injury, you go to that first session, but then you have to come back every couple weeks or every month or whatever the cadence is. You have to come back to it and work on it with your PT, and probably they've assigned some homework for you, some exercises that you need to do on your own time. Therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, is the same. You're not just going to show up and like, oh no, I have attachment issues with my significant others. I always push everybody away. You're not going to show up to your therapist's office with this issue and like walk out the next day with that solved and suddenly you're fully capable of healthy relationships. If it's going to take some time, first of all, for you and your therapist to get to know each other. Secondly, to actually uncover okay, what all is behind this issue. And thirdly, to figure out how to approach it in the future. And most importantly, it takes time to change your thought patterns and to change behavior. And that's what therapy is about at the end of the day. You have to train new habits, train new thought patterns. So it does take some time and a fair amount of sessions to get going. So adjust your expectations. Don't give up after the first little handful of times. If there's a therapist you like, if you trust them, and if you feel like you've really been challenging yourself to be honest in your sessions, don't give up right away just because you're not seeing results, because those results take time, because that's stuff that's in your head that you're trying to rewire the brain, the thought patterns and behaviors. And it takes time to undo the stuff that we've learned all our lives. So be patient and adjust your expectations. It's a bit more of an investment, but it's definitely worth it, because look, if you do this work now, then you've got your whole life of the benefits to reap. So I encourage you, if you're somebody who's in therapy and thinking about quitting, or if you've quit in the past and are thinking about starting it up again, give therapy another try. Find a therapist you like and choose one of these tips to really focus on and implement so that you can get the most out of your therapy. Your mental health is worth it. Go after it. And I want to know, which of these tips resonated with you the most? Or did I leave something out? Another reason why therapy hasn't worked in the past. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you want more content like this. I talk about self-esteem, relationships, careers, all that good stuff. Now put away your phone and go after it. Your mental health is worth it.